Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Deborah Exner, and I'll be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Before we begin, please silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Additionally, please refrain from any interruptions to the debate, as it is being recorded for on-demand viewing and post-captioning services. The Citizens Clean Elections Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Citizens Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform and public education measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. The Clean Elections Act was created to allow campaigns to be more issue-oriented and less negative. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who participate voluntarily. The candidates agree to abide by the Clean Elections Act and rules, which include contribution and spending limits, foregoing special interest money, as well as participating in these commission debates. The candidates invited to participate tonight are in contested general elections. Candidates in uncontested general elections are not included in the debate process. For tonight's debate, questions have been prepared by Clean Elections based on a voter survey, as well as questions that have been submitted by voters through the Clean Elections smartphone app. However, we will encourage live audience questions first. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the note cards given to you as you entered. Our volunteers will pick them up if you hold them up, and will deliver them to me. If you need additional cards, just raise your hand. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. The debate is scheduled for 90 minutes, so we may not get to all of your questions, but we will do our best. There's an independent timer who will see that all of the candidates have their allotted time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. As a courtesy to the other candidates, please respect the time limits. When the timer raises the stop sign, the moderator will stop the candidate. Tonight's debate includes 1-minute opening statements, a lightning round, the first half of the debate, which begins with 2 minutes to answer audience questions. Each candidate will answer the same audience question, and we will rotate which candidate responds first. After all candidates have responded to a question, the first responding candidate will be given an additional 30 seconds. The second half will allow a different question to be asked of each candidate with 1 minute to answer. Then we end with 1-minute closing statements. If you have a question for a specific candidate, please include the candidate's name on the note card. It will be considered during the second half of the debate. We ask that you remain polite to all the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything that's being said. Tonight's participants are running for office in District 16. We have Mr. David Farnsworth, Republican, running for the State Senate. Mr. Scott Pryor, a Democrat and a Clean Elections candidate, running for State Senate. Mr. Doug Coleman, Republican, running for State Representative. Ms. Cara Pryor, a Democrat, a Clean Elections candidate, running for State Representative. And Ms. Sharon Steinert, a Democrat, a Clean Elections candidate, running for State Representative. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate, for opening comments, and will progress from that starting point. The order for the second half will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name, starting with the House. Mr. Farnsworth, will you start with our opening remarks, please?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm grateful that you've each taken your time to come. My name is David Farnsworth. I'm currently serving as your state senator. I am a fourth-generation Arizonan. I attended public schools in Mesa, graduated from Mesa High School and Mesa Community College. I'm married to Robin and have 7 children and 29 grandchildren, the youngest of which is 2 weeks old, and her name is Liberty. I served a Spanish-speaking mission in Guatemala and El Salvador in Central America. I served as a member of the Arizona House of Representatives in the mid-90s, and I have served as your state senator since 2013. I believe that the United States Constitution was inspired by God as an important document to preserve our freedom, and I am working hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott Pryor.
Thanks for coming tonight, everybody. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Clean Elections, for setting this forum up for us. I am a resident of Apache Junction. I've lived there since 1998. My wife and I moved there when we worked for Intel Corporation. I'm here tonight because I want to be a voice. I want to be a voice for the 29,000 homeless students in our public schools. I want to be a voice for the 32,000 people living in poverty in our district alone. I want to be a voice for people who have lost their jobs over the past 6 months, as Arizona unemployment has gone up from 5.4% to 6%. And I want to be the voice of people who are marginalized and left out at the Capitol, unrepresented because they're different, because they have different ideology, they have different religious beliefs, and they have different special interests in different things like the LGBT community, the Hispanic community. I want to be that voice. And that voice has to be responsible for everybody in the district, not just those that agree with you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Coleman.
Again, thank you for coming this evening. I'm Doug Coleman. I too am a fourth generation native. My great-grandfather actually helped to found the city of Mesa. My wife and I moved out to Apache Junction from Mesa in 1980 when Apache Junction had a population of 9,000 and has continued to grow. We have 6 daughters and 13 grandchildren, and that's actually why I do this. I would like for their future to be promising and for them to be able to receive the education that will allow them to be successful members of society. I've served 19 years on the Apache Junction City Council, 12 of those years as mayor. I tell you that just so that you know that local control of government functions is very important to me. I believe that government closest to the people is more responsive to the people. I also have taught at Apache Junction High School for 31 years. In fact, I still teach one class every morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Kara Pryor.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm running because I think that people need to have the voice, not special interests, not corporations. We need the little guy to have a voice. And if he doesn't have any power and he doesn't have any money, his voice isn't being heard, her voice isn't being heard. And I want to be that voice. I want people to come to me and say, hey, this is what's really bothering me. And daily stresses, work, job, everything, just the daily stresses. I want them to be able to come to me and be able to explain to me what the problems are and try to help me figure out what solutions would work for everybody. So that's why I'm running. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon Steinert.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here this evening. My name is Sharon Steinert, and I'm running for the House of Representatives. I am delighted to have the opportunity to introduce myself to the voters of Legislative District 16, because among other issues, my campaign is focusing on strong schools, good jobs, and fair taxes, because I believe they are uniquely interconnected. Without strong schools, we're not able to build an educated workforce that will attract companies with high-paying jobs that will provide jobs to our area. Jobs that will elevate our families into the middle class and provide the tax revenue to support the public institutions and the infrastructure that we as citizens use every day. I look forward to sharing my views on these issues and more during our time together this evening.
Thank you. To break the ice, we'll start with a quick lightning round. Please answer with just one word. Mr. Scott Pryor, Pandora or Spotify?
Pandora.
Mr. Coleman, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
Fox News.
Ms. Kara Pryor, Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Ms. Steinert, Lumberjack, Sun Devil, or Wildcat?
Lumberjack.
And Mr. Farnsworth, Snapchat or Instagram?
Instagram.
Thank you. At this time, we will begin the portion of the debate where each candidate will answer the same question and have 2 minutes to respond. The first question is for Mr. Coleman. If you were to be elected, what would be the first bill you would submit, and what would you consider your most important issue to address?
The first bill that I would submit would probably be the first bill that I submitted last session, which unfortunately wasn't even assigned to committee or given a hearing. It was a bill that would reduce the growth of what are known as student tuition organizations. Right now, we offer tax credits to companies if they donate to a student tuition organization, and those go to private schools to provide for tuition to private schools. The issue I have with that program is that it automatically grows 20% a year. Automatically. When it first started, it was about $10 million. Last year, it was about $62 million. Next year, it'll be $74.5 million, and it grows 20% every year until it's about $600 million. My bill just reduced the growth to either 2% or the consumer price index of the Phoenix metro area. That's all, just to reduce how fast it grows and how much it takes out of the state budget. And so that would probably be the first. I need to round up support for that, and we'll be working towards that. What was the second half of that question, or was there?
Yes. So what was the first bill you would submit, and what would you consider your most important issue to address?
Oh, education, by far, I think is the most important issue. We'll have Classrooms First coming out with their recommendations. It's one of the reasons, actually, that I want to go back to the legislature.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, same question.
Okay, the first bill I would like to submit is, there's a lot of people in poverty. There's a lot of people that aren't really making livable wages. There's just a lot of problems. I would like to actually try to get to the root cause of that and actually try to find solutions, livable wages, a little bit more stability in our economic infrastructures. That would be the stuff that I would like to concentrate on, not just kind of putting the Band-Aid on the broken leg, going to the root cause, finding out exactly what the problems are, and trying to solve them. And if I don't know the answers, I'll talk to someone who might be able to help me out. And I'm going to kind of go back on the economic stability and infrastructure of our communities, because even with proper education, more jobs are going to want to, people are going to want to come out here if we have decent roads to drive on and decent factories for them to actually be able to have their employees in. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert, same question, please.
The first legislation that I would wish to introduce would be to restore the funding to basic public education that has been eliminated or drained away over the years since 2009. We are short billions of dollars, and it's really starting to impact the classroom so that our children are stuffed into classrooms more with larger class sizes, and not enough teachers to teach them. Teaching is the most quality indicator that we can select to make sure that our students are educationally successful. And so I want that funding to be restored so that parents who want a choice can choose public education and feel that they are getting the quality product that their taxpayers are paying for, and that their legislature is not denying them.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth.
One of the biggest constituent issue that I've been hearing, we get many phone calls and emails concerning homeowners associations. There's a lot of people who are unhappy with their homeowners associations, and so we've been holding hearings all throughout the summer with constituents to hear the challenges and ask for solutions. And so the first bill I will probably be dropping will be concerning an HOA problem that everyone seems to agree is a problem, and that is at least one HOA is turning off people's water for non-payment of assessments. Now, not for non-payment of the water, but non-payment of assessments. And we all know that challenges come up in life, and sometimes we have difficulties. If someone loses a job and they have a little bit of money left, they'll probably buy gasoline to get to work and buy groceries and keep the lights on, and the homeowners association assessments might be secondary there. And so not only do they have the right to foreclose on your house if you don't pay your assessments, but now some are stepping over the line and actually turning off people's water here in Arizona to hold that big stick over them to collect those assessments. And so that's my biggest issue, I believe, is property rights. You've got to find that proper balance between property rights and what I call property values. Do we want to control our neighbors and tell them what they cannot do, or do we want to have property rights? Now, that we have to find that balance, because if we are abusive of our neighbors, that's not fair, but it goes both directions. And so we got to find that balance between what is proper to use our property for without hurting our neighbors, and that's very important to me.
Mr. Scott Pryor.
If I happen to win, let me know and I'll submit that one for you. My focus and my most important bill that I would like to drop, and I haven't quite figured out the wording on how to do this or the actual way to do it. I believe that our elected officials should be held to a higher standard. And I think that ethical behavior should be penalized when it is infringed upon. By that, I mean that we should have nonpartisan committees, not the legislature themselves, investigating legislative ethics violations. It's kind of like the cops policing the cops. It doesn't really get there. So my first focus for a type of a bill that I would like to drop would be to make ethics violations very punitive, because the root of all evil is money. And if people are using their position in a nefarious way, they should be held accountable for that. And right now we don't have really good control on how to make that happen. So that would be the first type of bill that I would like to drop. As for my focus and some of the most important things that I would like to see happen would be bolstering our economy. We have infrastructure that is not being kept up. My wife and I just got back from vacation, and I can't tell you how many rest stops are just dilapidated because we don't have funding for them anymore. We've lost tourism because we don't have enough funding to keep up our national parks, our state parks, not national parks, but state parks. We need to focus on infrastructure big time, especially for water. We are in the desert, and we do need to make sure we have enough water for everybody here to survive, regardless of how we get it. If we have to work with Mexico to bring water up from the Gulf of Mexico or the Baja California Peninsula, we need to do that, because we can't survive here without it. So those would be my big focuses, would be Senate ethics or actually legislative ethics, and then infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, this is your opportunity for a 30-second addition.
Ditto to all of that. I really don't have anything to add other than, when we talk about increasing funding to education, and we can blame the legislature, but quite honestly, we did not renew a half-cent sales tax that brought in $1 billion a year to education. The voters did not support that. And so many of those cuts had to come as a result of that. I'm biased, having been in the classroom for 31 years and seeing what our teachers stop.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, here's the next question. What is the role of government in helping lift families living in poverty in LD 16 to lift them out of poverty?
What is the
Role of government.
current role or the role that I would like to see?
It's your question to interpret as you wish.
Okay, I'm going to take the positive side then. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, I would like to think that families can have their jobs and have food on the table, gas in the cars, be able to go on vacation, go out to dinner. I mean, it's all about a livable wage. and a livable wage and the ability to be able to have health care benefits. You can have the coolest job in the world, but if you're only working part-time, you don't qualify for benefits. So you have to get those, and they're not cheap. So that's what I would like to put the focus on, is not necessarily finding the jobs, because it's not the corporations that are the job creators, it's the consumers. A lot of people maybe want to argue with me about that, but that's what I believe. And I think that if we get the communities more involved and we get people feeling like they have a sense of worth, they have a job to go to, they're feeding their families, they're living their lives, that's what I think I would want to see change.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert, same question.
Would you repeat the question?
Certainly. What is the role of government in helping lift families living in poverty in LD 16 out of poverty?
I believe the role of government is to prevent extreme poverty on the first level of effectiveness, but then also support working families who are trying to make ends meet. And they have a difficulty just trying to put a roof over their heads and food on the table. I believe that if we invest in these kinds of resources early on and in a preventative way, that we can support strengthening the family unit, making sure that the children grow up strong and healthy, and that they are afforded the opportunity to build lives as successful citizens. I do think that we have been short-sighted by not providing more opportunity for building infrastructure, and we've shredded our safety net, I think, far too deeply, because hungry children is not something that I think our society should accept. I do believe that we are much better than that our desire for humanity for all should take precedent, and that children and people who are trying to make a go of this life should not be just considered numbers on a page. I do think that it is actually an investment in our society, because if we're taking care of the least of our people in a way that gives them and provides them dignity, then we are doing our patriotic and civic duty.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth.
Thank you. The proper role of government is something I'm most passionate about. I believe the proper role of government is to protect liberty, and you could stop it right there, and that would be sufficient. However, we have gone a long ways down the road of socialism, and the big challenge is inefficiencies of government and the human inclination to control, overreach of government. The reason we have so much poverty, in my opinion, is government overreach, too many regulations. It's very difficult to start a business, which dries up those jobs that everybody needs. Now, we need to find that balance, and one of the things I was most passionate about in this last session was some of the things that's really harming poor people, and that's the title loan, things like that. They were trying to bring back the flex loans at 204% interest, and I was the number one person who fought against that. I worked with my friends on the other side of the aisle. We had all the Democrats on board and a few Republicans, and we were able to push back on that. As I met with St. Vincent de Paul and some of the other faith-based groups, they said it's much more difficult to help people in poverty once they get these loans if they would go to their priest or rabbi or bishop first. When they first got in trouble, it would be much easier to help them with rent and food and so forth. But if they go to these predatory lenders first, then they have these huge loans. How do you pay back a 204% loan? It's virtually impossible. So it's the job of the faith-based people, and the proper role of government is to make sure these predatory lenders are put out of business.
Mr. Scott Pryor.
Please repeat the question.
Sure. What is the role of government in helping lift families living in poverty in LD 16 out of poverty?
My thoughts on it is that the role of government is to protect its citizens. I mean, this is a government of the people. So shouldn't the government of the people protect the people? Shouldn't we concentrate on our communities and helping those who have lost their jobs? I've lost jobs before, and it's not a pretty sight. I hate not being able to work, but that's the way the economy runs. I think that a lot of things could be done better, and one of those things that could be done better is we could stop giving tax breaks to corporations while we're pulling benefits away from people that are living in poverty. Because those people need it more. They're trying to survive. They're not trying to make a profit. But when you have a corporation that's, getting a whole taxpayer entitlement while somebody next door can't even afford to feed their family, is that right? Is that what government should allow? Is that what it should focus on? We need to start capping down on cronyism and capitalism, because those are the problems. When corporations are just basically raping the people and exploiting the resources while people are struggling just to survive, that's wrong. And I think the government should take care of that by not allowing that type of capitalism. Capitalism is not a bad thing until it goes into greed, until it goes into the extreme, just like anything. So we need to find that balance and start working on building the health of our communities as opposed to supporting crony capitalists, because that's what's happening in our state, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
I believe there's a very strong correlation between poverty and the lack of education. And one of the things that I see government, one of the roles of government, especially when you look at our state constitution, is to provide a proper education for our children. Also, retraining programs for adults, I see as a proper investment in people to help them rise above poverty and above poverty level. I think government does have a responsibility to provide a safety net for individuals who find themselves in a position where they need a hand up. But I don't think it should incentivize people not to work. And we have some programs that actually do that, where that was one of the reasons why I supported the return of kids care, was because it was for the working poor. It was for those people that had jobs but could not afford health insurance. And so this would allow them to keep working rather than have to quit, so that they qualified for access and other programs. So I saw that as a way of helping a proper role of government to help people rise above poverty. I do believe that we all have a personal responsibility to take care of our families and those around us, and that's my answer.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, your 30-second response?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Thank you. So Ms. Steinert starts this one off. What would you do to improve or change the educational system of Arizona? Curriculum, policies, standards, evaluations?
I think there are many ways that we can start to invest in our education, and that is by making sure, first and foremost, that we are setting a standard of excellence for our students, that this is something that is created within our state to make sure that our students are competitive with other graduates as they go on to college, as well as to their careers in Arizona and elsewhere. And one of the biggest factors in improving education is to restore the teachers to a field where it is considered a profession, and that they are paid commensurate with their abilities and their knowledge and their training in order to take care of our children in the classroom, creating that welcoming, challenging learning environment. The testing of our students has really gone too far overboard, is what I'm trying to say. And I think we need to get back to giving the teachers in the classroom more independence and ability to assess their students by a variety of methods, not just a test that measures a student's health on a particular day and a particular hour, because they are not able to always be successful on tests is another reason why testing is not the key indicator of a successful education system. So I think we have much work to do, and it's going to run the gamut of a variety of different perspectives, whether it's curriculum, whether it's teaching as a profession, and whether it's providing enough resources to our teachers and buildings for our children to be in that are not crumbling and falling down.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth.
Thank you very much. There's nothing more important than educating our young people. And in my opinion, the biggest challenge of that is the inefficiencies of government. And if you'll consider this glass of water as a classroom, and this picture is money that we add, and then add to that a funnel. Now, if we have a proper funnel, that'll make sure every drop gets to the classroom. Unfortunately, our government system is like you take that funnel and turn it upside down, and you try to pour into the small part of the funnel, and a lot of it goes on the outside. And where is the outside? That's bureaucracy. That's inflated. Superintendents make a lot of money. There are the middle ground, the middle managers. The money's not getting to the classroom, and that's the most frustrating thing. When Prop 123 was coming through, I was the last senator to vote on that, and I really struggled with that because I know how important it is to send money to the classroom, but I was concerned because there were no clear guidelines in that to ensure that the money got there. And I heard recently that one school district, the teachers, instead of getting a raise, got a bonus. Now, that's way too temporary. I hope they still get their raises because they haven't had one in years. Nothing more important than educating our young people, but our system is very inefficient. The charter schools, and I think a lot of them are wrongfully getting rich at it, but we're spending so much money and our public schools are so inefficient, we've got to get that money to the classroom and reward those great teachers who passionately want to teach these young people.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Pryor.
Please repeat the question.
What would you do to improve or change the educational system of Arizona? Curriculum, policies, standards, evaluations?
In only 2 minutes?
Yes.
Oh, wow. It's a comprehensive problem, and it's not just about funding. Okay, I agree with Senator Farnsworth about the fact that we have many inefficiencies. There's a lot of lack of transparency in our charter school system. They're spending a lot more money, $128 million a year more, just in administrative costs. There's efficiencies in public schools. We have a lot of that out there. I was against Prop 123 for the same thing that Senator Farnsworth just said. There was nothing in the proposition that guaranteed the money would go to the classroom. That's got to stop. If we're going to actually make education better, we've got to make sure that it's transparent and every dollar is accounted for in a good way. It's fiscally responsible. We also got to work on curriculum. You got to let teachers teach. If all you're doing is holding them to the fire, whether their students pass a test at the end of the year, that's horrible. I didn't have that problem in school. I just, this past weekend, spent 3 or 4 hours with my debate coach from high school because I went to my 30th high school reunion, and we didn't have that. We had teachers that cared and that teachers that could actually teach how the students could learn. Teaching people how to take a test doesn't always work. Curriculum needs to be fixed. We need to make sure that we have vocational training in our schools. Because I had 2 years of auto body in school, so when I graduated high school, I had a job to go to or that I could do before I went to college. It's important for us to make sure that we follow that and push our students, because it could give somebody who doesn't want to go to college a career that will not have them living in poverty, that will not having them live in homelessness, and make a productive member of society. Our infrastructure in our schools is horrible. We have schools that are falling apart. Let's fix those things. Let's actually make education a real priority, comprehensive priority, not funding, but everything, because all of it is inclusive. And if we do that, the students are going to stay in school. They're going to come out of school with a good education, and we will have our educated workforce.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
I agree with many of the things that have been said. over my 31-year career in the classroom, I saw my job moving from teaching to documenting, and that's what it felt like. Instead of the focus being on teaching and interacting with students and providing them quality, it went to documentation. And how do I prove that, that they met the competencies, and began spending more time on that than actually teaching. I think sometimes we spend $1 for accountability to get 5 cents worth of quality, and that's how I feel. Senator Farnsworth talked about the teachers that were getting a bonus rather than a raise, and the problem is that unless the money goes to the base, the base funding for the state, it can't be relied on to be there year after year after year, and so they can't give raises like with one-time funding. If we're able to give them one-time funding, that can't be used for raises. It has to go into the base. So we need an increase in the base in order for our teachers to get more. I have problems with the way that we defined administration because reading specialists, for example, that's administration. The cafeteria ladies, that's administration. The bus drivers, that's administration. Utilities is administration. And so it looks like administration is bloated. And I'm not saying that superintendents make too much money or too little money. I'm just saying that administration is a lot more inclusive than just those costs of what we're paying our administrators. I don't think there's a lot of administrators getting rich in the public school system.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, sorry.
Would you please repeat the question?
Sure. What would you do to improve or change the educational system of Arizona? Curriculum, policies, standards, evaluations?
I have lots of ideas, but I also know lots of teachers, and that's their area of expertise. So I would rather pick up that conversation with Mr. Coleman or Ms. Steinert, people that are currently in the classroom. I would definitely say that I am a supporter of STEAM. Not everybody is going to go to college. Not everybody wants to go to college. Some people are going to be an artist. So put the art back in. Let's get some vocational agriculture. I mean, just different things. Not everybody's going to live in Arizona their whole life. Maybe they're going to move on to something else. Maybe they want to do something else. Maybe they want to take a small business course. I mean, even if you maybe have to put a little bit of money into education now, a little bit more, I don't agree just throwing money at it, but if you put some more money in there now and get some teachers that are motivating the students, and maybe even some of the students motivating the teachers, or at least keeping them on their toes, maybe kids will want to stay in school. Maybe they will actually want to become members of the community that can say, hey, I have this really great job and I have this really great teacher. So maybe we just need to, I don't know, inspire and not always talk about the downside of it. I don't know, maybe we just need to change the topic, change the way we talk about everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert, your 30-second response?
I've heard it said that we can't throw money at the problem, but in reality, it does take money to educate our youngsters. It does take money to keep the electricity on, to keep the buses running, and to make sure that they're getting a quality educational opportunity. I think that the ability to pass overrides that the legislature is depending upon when they've shifted the budget, the costs of education down to the local level, that's a problem.
Mr. Farnsworth, next question. What would you do to ensure the maintenance of Social Security and Medicare?
Oh, that is a great question. I recently applied for my Social Security, and I was pretty excited because I've paid my whole life into Social Security since I was 16 years old, and I got a few checks, and then I got a bill. I got a bill from Social Security for $10,000, and I was quite shocked. And apparently I didn't listen well enough when I did the first interview, because I didn't expect to be appointed to the Senate and make this big, huge salary of $24,000 a year. And I was informed that because I was making too much money, I can only make $15,000 a year. And so they sent me a bill for $10,000. And I said, well, I don't have $10,000. So they just cut off my Social Security for 18 months so it can be paid back. So Social Security is, again, I felt, oh my goodness, if the money had been protected the way it should have been, Social Security would have been the strongest fund the history of the world has ever seen. Unfortunately, the crooked politician spent all the money and it's gone. Now they're calling it entitlement, and working people now are paying for seniors who are already retired. Now, we're going to have to make some adjustments to it, and I don't have any good answers. There are no good answers because those crooked politicians stole the money, but we have to keep it intact. And boy, I'll tell you what,
Thank
we
you.
need help.
Mr. Scott Pryor.
Well, Social Security and Medicare is a federal thing, and that's not something that we would actually handle at the legislature here in Arizona. But I have to agree with Senator Farnsworth on that, because my mother she's 71 now, and she was a Marine or a Navy petty officer for 23 years, and she's now helping to take care of my younger brother, who's now disabled and on Social Security disability. And it's very important as a safety net, especially for people that have been paying in it for as long as we have. And with the economy and with the cost of living and stuff like that, it's not enough anymore. We have a lot of people that are on fixed incomes that are struggling really, really hard because of, like he said, those dirty politicians come in and take our money. And that's pretty much what happened, is they diverted money from Social Security into other avenues, and that's pretty much hurt the system. So we need to find a way. Hopefully we can work with our congressional members and senators for in our federal races, and hopefully have them work this problem out for the benefit of the people, because I'm almost 50, as a matter of fact, and so I just got my AARP stuff in the mail, and I'm looking at 15 years from now going, how am I going to do this? So it's very important. It's very important that we take care of our seniors, and that we make sure that those of us coming up behind our seniors actually have the same benefits. Because I really don't want to have to live with my mom. She will beat my butt every single day for doing stuff like that. So I think we really need to work on that, and we can. I think it's a doable situation.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
Yeah, Mr. Pryor's right. It is a federal issue. But what we can do is encourage our congressional delegation to work towards that. You're going to turn. I turned 60 in this coming December, so I have a couple more years to go. I'm looking forward to it. But I remember walking into Taco. This is off the subject. Walking into Taco Bell and ordered, and the gal rang it up, and it was cheaper than it was on the menu. And I said, "Are you sure you rang that up correctly?" And she goes, "Oh, I gave you the senior discount." And I would have rather paid the 50 cents than get the senior discount. That made me feel really old, but anyway.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor.
Yes, we do need to protect Social Security. It is not an entitlement. We pay into this. I don't know, is the senator Les said, crooked politicians, so maybe we don't give all the money to the pool. Maybe if I'm working a job, a certain percentage goes into my account, where maybe I can't get my hands on it until I'm like in my 60s or something, but maybe if we don't give all the money to them to play with, we actually can assure that we actually have our own safety net. So we know beyond a shadow of a doubt whether this is feasible or not. At least I have this much money. If I still have to work a job, fine, but I've at least got money to buy food and put gas in the car to go to the job I'm probably going to need along with it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert.
Well, I appreciate the younger people that are working every day paying into Social Security, because I am a Social Security recipient. And I think that not so much for me, but for others who are struggling without having any pension to fall back on, or any savings or investment income that they can draw from, and that's not always a secure location either to put your money into the stock market. But without those resources, it's probably the biggest anti-poverty program that we could that we've instituted in this country. And I think it is important that we protect it, that we find ways to support it, and perhaps protect in a way that it can't be continually drained off by other, for other means and other reasons. And I think that perhaps we have an opportunity to reform it a bit by looking at those folks who are making a considerable amount of money through their investments, and maybe they are not going to be getting as much from their Social Security. We have to figure this formula out so that those who need it the most have it when they get to that age where they can either on Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security, that those programs are there to protect and to keep them healthy and safe and in their homes as long as possible. Because the alternative means that we have to pay more in social programs if they don't have the dignity of an individual income. So I'm all for Social Security. I think it's a great program.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, your 30-second response?
Thank you. And of course, the big picture there is the federal government is spending too much money. And as long as they spend more money than they take in, Social Security is not going to be safe. Now, there are some things specifically that we're going to have to do probably, and that is increase the age and so forth, which I don't like that idea at all. But nevertheless, you know, in our family budget, we have to look at how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. And if there's more money going out than coming in, we either have to make more money or spend less, and the federal government needs to do the same.
Thank you. So now we'll transition to the part of the debate where each candidate will receive a separate question with 1 minute to respond. Remember that you may still submit questions via note cards and direct them to specific candidates. The first question is for Ms. Steinert. What is your opinion of the SNAP food stamp program?
The ability to be able to have children who go to bed with full tummies is probably the biggest reason that I would support the SNAP program. It is the basic of our social safety net. And I don't see any argument that could convince me that we are not a society that wants everyone to be able to have a meal. To me, it's an actual basic human right not to go hungry. And I think that that is why we have to have programs like this. And again, it is preventing some serious health issues for children and adults who are not having the opportunity for food sufficiency. So I do support SNAP, and I will work to make sure that it's available for the most vulnerable
Thank you.
in our society.
Ms. Kara Pryor, do you believe that further incorporation within your district will help drive commercial and consumer development of job opportunities and all our community to improve wealth for better wages?
Would it be rude for me to ask you to reread that, please?
No problem. Do you believe that further incorporation within your district will help drive commercial and consumer development of job opportunities and all of our community to improve wealth for better wages?
Well, I think we would have to backpedal a little bit, and first we would have to actually have a better education system. We'd have to work on our infrastructure and our economy before we would. Those would be our selling points to say, hey, this is why you want to come here. Right now, we're not really so good in education. We got bridges that are falling apart. We have issues, so you figured we'd want to kind of get a little bit more button up and beautiful before we try to say, hey, we want you to come here. I couldn't actually sell to somebody, hey, you should come out here. This is why. If they were to ask me why, I don't know, we have pretty sunsets. Mm-hmm. We have some nice mountains. I mean, scenery. I mean, I'm not mocking the state. I love Arizona, but if I was a business, I wouldn't want to come here.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, has the 4-day week for schools proven to be cost effective? And do we have any results from test scores to inform us about student performance levels after attending schools 4 days a week?
I mentioned before I teach at Apache Junction High School. They called me and asked me to come back. I'd retired in 2012 when I was first elected to the legislature. They asked me to come back because they wanted to bring back some of the electives because the seniors, instead of having to be on campus for 4 periods a day, now had to be on for 5 periods a day. And they had gotten rid of so many of the electives that they asked me to come back. I ask my kids quite often because school starts at 6:50 in the morning. I have kids get on the bus at, they wake up at 4 every day. Some of those kids work fast foods. They have to close. They're not home till 11. It's rough. It's rough. Ask them if they like it. I'm not sure they like the 4-day week. I do know that they like the 3-day weekend. And, I believe the district is committed to do it for 2 more years. I believe actually our test scores went up this year after they instituted the 4-day week.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Pryor, considering that due to uncontested races, the House will be controlled by Republicans, how realistic is it to believe that a Democratic representative can have a meaningful impact?
Well, I think that a Democratic representative could have a great impact because it brings a different perspective, especially if you have somebody that hasn't served as a politician for a long period of time, because they don't necessarily think political. That's one of the things I like to think that I bring to the table is I don't think political. I think humanitarian. I think what's going to benefit all the people in the district that I want to represent. I mean, I understand that the chances are slim just by voter registration numbers and this, that, and the other. But not letting people have a choice at the ballot is not an excuse for not putting people on the ballot and getting people to run for office. And, if I didn't run for office this time, I couldn't have, been sitting next to Senator Farnsworth and joking around with him. And, that's a benefit. Because when you have people like the two of us, if say both of us were running for representative and we both got elected, because of the fact that we have a kind of friendship aside from the political, we could actually work together and we kind of know the nuances, and that's important.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, what is your second and third step for funding Proposition 123?
Well, that's a good one. I am very uncomfortable with giving any more money to education until we get a handle on where the money is going. My first week in office, I went to a meeting of JLAC, which is Joint Legislative Audit Committee. And I had done a little research in preliminary for that meeting and discovered a lot of financial fraud. And in that meeting, I asked the Auditor General about financial fraud and she said to me something I'll never forget. She said, most of the financial fraud that's yet undiscovered, in other words, if she had found it, she would have stopped it, but most of the financial fraud in Arizona exists in the school districts. And I was shocked. And I made a recording of that. I've got it on my laptop, so if any of you want to watch it. And so we all need to get together, find out where that money is going.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert, what is your view of the American dream, and what is the role of government in helping individuals achieve that dream?
I know that when I was coming up as a young person, to me, the American dream was to be able to support myself and to be a homeowner one day and be able to have enough money so that I could enjoy a trip here and there. I was training to be a teacher, so my expectations were not very high as far as a huge income. But I think that having a family and supporting oneself with a good paying job was the American dream, and I submit that it still is.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, what question did we not ask you this evening that you were hoping we wouldn't ask you? Would you answer that question? What question did we not ask you this evening that you were hoping we would not ask? Would you answer that question?
I think you just answered it with your question. I'm really not sure how to respond to that.
Okay.
Pass?
Okay. Mr. Coleman, what would you do to preserve and protect our public lands?
Preserve and protect our public lands. I would meet with Senator Farnsworth and gather his ideas. You know, there's a lot of restrictions on public lands. We have a school in Apache Junction that's built on BLM land, and there's only certain uses that can go on BLM land. We've had universities come and look at that school, actually. But the problem is they want to build housing, and you can't build housing on BLM land. I think some of the ideas from Growing Smarter, I do think that we need some state trust land reform. I'm not sure that Prop 123 actually went through far enough as far as reform goes. There's things that we could do where we set aside some of those lands for recreational purposes, but also we can put in advance where the roads are going to be and that sort of thing, which increases the value of the land adjacent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Scott Pryor, what is your position on requiring police officers to wear body cameras?
I think it's actually probably a very good idea. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, if they're required to wear the body camera, it can protect their situation. It can protect them from false accusation. And the other side of that is it protects the citizens from, over exuberance by police officers. There has been a lot of news lately about police and overstepping their bounds and what like. I'm very fond of police officers because I know that they have a very hard job. And I know that with anything, you're going to have a couple of bad apples in the barrel. And that's something that we need to figure out how to weed out. But I think as a protection for both the citizenry and for the police officers themselves, body cameras are a good idea. It does add a little bit of cost to the operations, but I think that the amount of money it will save in lawsuits and false accusations would probably equal it out.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, the last time we cost accounted our special education cost was in 2007. No one in the state can answer the last time we cost accounted the entire education system. How often should we cost account our education system / special education?
You know, special education is a very important part of our educational system. I have a granddaughter who is autistic, and I could tell a long story about the challenges my daughter has gone through with that 14-year-old who is bigger than she is and struggles in school. And so we need to look at that very carefully. The challenge we have is so much money is being wasted. I found out that just money in general, the school districts are basically auditing themselves because they hire their own auditing company. And I'm very uncomfortable with that. And so we need to be looking at where that money is going. And I think there needs to be an outside auditor that is not hired by the school district themselves that can keep an eye on that, because we need to spend more money on special education.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert, what can we do to aid you in reaching your goals?
Right now, my goals are wrapped around the people that live in my district. Probably the greatest thing that we can do for our district is to be able to have representation that is responsive and available to the community at large. I think for far too long. We've needed that hands-on approach from our legislative leadership, and so I feel that I would be very much aligned with the opportunity to meet with people and be in the community, because I'm currently very involved. Even though I'm retired, I'm very involved in the community and on many boards and committees. So that's one thing that I think the voters of LD 16, if I would be elected, would help me reach the goal of being a good representative for the people that I would serve.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, what is your opinion of the amount of money in the state of Arizona spends in addressing the needs of the state and its citizens?
I think that's kind of a loaded and very complicated question. I mean, I don't even want to pretend that I know everything about the budget and how the monies are spent. I really think that I'd have to actually have a lot more facts and some conversations with some experts before I could really give that question a really good answer.
Thank you. You were completed, Chris?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Coleman, what programs would you like to reallocate the funds saved by reducing the student tuition growth?
What funds would I say that again?
What programs would you like to reallocate the funds with the funds saved by reducing the student tuition growth?
Oh, for what I was saying about the STOs? Is that referring to, I'm going to assume that that was referring to my first answer with that bill. I'd like to put it in the base funding for education for both district and charter schools. Won't go a long ways. I hate to say it's only, $62 million, but it's $62 million. And that's where I think it ought to go.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Pryor, what are your thoughts about the state of Arizona's efforts to expand the state's Medicaid health care program to include an additional 340,000 low-income Arizonans?
Well, my personal belief is that healthcare is a right. It's not a benefit. The amount of money that we could save by preventative healthcare versus emergency room visits because my child is sick is incredible. We've seen reductions here in Arizona since the Affordable Care Act in that specific route of people that have stopped going to the emergency room for a cold. It's saved a lot of money because a lot of people that go to emergency rooms that are low income can't afford to pay. I think that it's a good idea to make sure that people are healthy, because the cost of keeping people healthy are much less than having an entire, an army of sick people. It's one of the problems, like when we go to work. It's really hard for me to go to work around sick people because they don't have the time off or the money to take care of themselves. So it makes me sick, which then makes her sick. It's a compounded problem. So making sure that everybody has basic health care, I think, is a right.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, the maximum salary for paying into Medicare is $118,500. Do you feel this amount should be raised? If so, what would you, as a state senator, do to encourage Washington politicians to increase the cap?
I do not think it should be raised. It comes down to the basic discussion of socialism versus personal responsibility. And this is a perfect forum to discuss that, and that's why we come together with a lot of agreement and a few disagreements. Again, the example of the funnel, the federal government is like that upside-down funnel. They collect our income tax, and how much do we get back? Very little. Government is inefficient, and so I believe that healthcare and most everything should be personal and not government operated. I agree with Scott on most things, but I don't think it is a right. I think government is very inefficient. Now, we have a lot of socialism in our country, and we can't just immediately stop all the programs, but we need to limit them because we can't afford to keep increasing the programs. It'll break the bank. Socialism doesn't work. Personal responsibility does. Now, how do we get back there? It's tough to do.
Thank you. Ms. Steinert, what are your thoughts about requiring employers to pay both men and women the same wage for doing the same work?
I'm recalling that when I first started teaching, I was grateful that the men and the women who were coming into the school system as first-year teachers were being paid the same, because I thought, how progressive. We're really equals in this profession. And that continues to be true in some professions, but not in all. And I also recall that the living wage, the salaries that we were making, both men and women, were really not as robust as we would need them to be to support our families unless we were a two-paycheck family. And so oftentimes the men would have to be able to go out over the summertime and make more money in the summertime working jobs that were available to men, but not to women, and then as much as they would make as much then as they would make all year teaching. So I think that we need to raise all boats.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, what is your position regarding children of undocumented illegal immigrants born in the United States being granted citizenship, legal citizenship?
Well, immigration is not really a state issue. I mean, we do address it. So I really think that it comes down to just basic human rights of anybody being able to just have food in their bellies and not be denied. I mean, it's a very loaded question. I'm not gonna lie to you, and I'm sure we could either agree and disagree on certain aspects of it. But I just want to say that whether I get into the legislature or whether I just continue being an advocate for people in my district, that's not necessarily going to be an issue that I will actually be able to deal with at this level. So I think I'll just maybe just leave it at that. And sorry if anybody feels slighted that I didn't answer the question.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, what is your position on voters having to provide identification in order to vote in Arizona elections?
I believe that the Supreme Court has ruled in certain cases, but I don't think it's a bad idea to require that someone prove that they are who they say they are when they go in to vote. And so a form of ID, I think, is not a bad idea.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Pryor, what is your perspective on Arizona's law to allow the use of marijuana for medical purposes?
This one's kind of near and dear to my heart. 2009, my brother was almost killed in a workplace injury at Intel, New Mexico. He's now disabled, destroyed half of his body that he doesn't have. He has been on so many medications from the pharmaceutical company that he turned into a guinea pig. Nothing worked. They gave him a medical marijuana card, and it helps. That's the only thing that matters to me, is that he is not suffering what he was now because of the medical marijuana that he was before, when they were feeding him opiates and all this medication that pharmaceutical companies do. There's a lot of untapped potential in medical marijuana that needs to be studied and needs to be taken care of. But when it comes down to the base for it, I'm all for it because it helps my brother. And, you know, I've known him all of his life because I'm older. But he used to be an athlete. He was third place in the state in cross country in Texas when we were in high school. And now he can't make it to the front door.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, you were quoted at another forum saying public education was socialism. How does that impact you in your role for the office that you seek?
I think it's very important to understand that, you know, and the Karl Marx in his Communist Manifesto listed 10 planks of how to overthrow a free government, and one of those planks was public schools. Now, as I said earlier, there's nothing more important than educating our young people, but we have to be very careful what they're being taught. I was in a committee meeting in the legislature this last session where they were honoring the father of the theory of evolution, and I refused to vote to honor him because I said I was taught in public school that I descended from a monkey. And I didn't believe it then, and I don't believe it now. And I think that schools are infiltrated by some improper teachings that, thank goodness, we have some great teachers that will correct
Thank you.
those things.
Ms. Steinert, what is your position toward the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution?
I am the wife of a retired law enforcement officer. My husband spent 25 years with the Ohio State Patrol, and although he drew his gun on occasion, he never had to fire it. We own guns in our home. I have also participated in target shooting and the like. But I'm also a responsible citizen. I'm a responsible gun owner. And I do believe that we need to make sure that we have proper safety training, because not everyone is able to handle a gun in just the right way, especially in a stressful situation. I also believe that we need to track our guns so that law enforcement can be able to protect themselves and the citizenry, because they know where the guns were purchased and where they were transferred in subsequent sales.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, what are your thoughts about renewable energy, solar, wind, hydro, et cetera, and generation of that in Arizona?
We live in the land of the sun. New Jersey and Germany are kicking our butts. We should be so ashamed of ourselves. We talk about jobs. There's a whole plethora of jobs right there. Everything should be running on wind and solar. Everything should have solar panels and APS and SRP. We shouldn't be paying them back squat. They should be happy. But there's too many people that are losing out for fossil fuels and all this other stuff. So I am a firm believer. I think everything should be solar. And like I said, we should just be ashamed of ourselves that we are not cornering the market and just at the very top of the solar community.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, 1 in 4 children in Arizona don't know where their next meal will come from. 10,000 families in LD 16 rely on SNAP food stamps. What are your plans to alleviate hunger in our state and in this district?
Do they not qualify for SNAP? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the impetus is of that question. There are programs out there. Perhaps we need to make people more aware if they find themselves in that position. I realize that there's a lot of poverty in our state. There's a lot of poverty in our district. I had students that lived out at First Water that would, ride the bus into school, and they had to move every 2 weeks because they couldn't camp in the same place. And so I realize it's there, and I realize that it's hard to teach hungry kids. And so I do support some of those programs. We have free and reduced lunch. And we also have a breakfast program, at least at the high school that I work at. And so those are programs that probably need to be.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Pryor, given the current electoral environment and voters' seeming lack of trust in their elected officials, what actions do you think elected officials can or should take to gain and maintain the voters' trust?
Oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. The first thing that needs to happen is communication. Okay, there is a big disconnect between the legislature and the constituents. There should be town halls. There should be town halls in the districts, different places in the district. Like we could have one in Santan Valley, one in Apache Junction, one in East Mesa every month. And have all of our legislators from the district there to discuss with the people what's going on. And that way they can get voter feedback and find out what their constituents are worried about. There's a program on the website that called Bill Tracker and Request to Speak. We need to get people more involved in participating in government. If we do that, then maybe they understand how the government works, and there may be some things that they don't like because they don't understand it. How many times he's seen my name on one of the requests to speak this last year because I was always commenting on bills. And that's one of the things we need to do.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, why was the exit at Meridian built?
That's a very good question. I'm gonna have to drive over there and look at it. But I will address it by saying our infrastructure needs to be improved. There are certain proper roles of government, and because we've gone so far down that road of socialism that we're trying to take care of everyone from the cradle to the grave, it is taking away money from the proper roles of government, which is infrastructure. We need more roads. I wish you had said why was the Freeway 24 built and it just stops right at Ellsworth. I mean, we have a lot of projects that have started and stopped. We need to put more money into transportation, but we need to find that money properly and not by increasing taxes. So our roads are becoming old, our bridges are weak. We need to put a lot more money into infrastructure, and thriving business is what brings that money.
Thank you. Ms. Steiner, what is your position regarding the federal government assigning control of Arizona's public lands to the state?
First of all, I think you'd have to have the permission of the federal government for those lands to be assigned to the state. I don't think that that's going to be an easy proposition to enact or make happen. We are not supporting our parks and public lands now to the degree that they deserve and that the public would like to see them maintained because they belong to all of us. And so if we are better stewards, if we were better stewards currently because of our state parks and lands, by providing the proper funding to support their maintenance and preservation, I think that until that time happens, we have no business thinking about taking over federal lands.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, what are your thoughts regarding the increasing the state's minimum wage?
I am all for it. In my experience, the same people that seem to complain about all the programs, well, if you raise the minimum wage and actually make it a livable wage, people still may have to work more than one job. I mean, the reality is that, but still, if it's a livable wage, then maybe less people will have to actually feel degraded and be a part of a program, which nobody wants to. So I'm a firm believer. I really think that we should raise the minimum wage, and I don't know, maybe it'll just make everybody a little bit happier and a little bit less stressed. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, how do we improve the state K through 12 education system?
Pay our teachers more. I think we need to attract, I truly think we need to attract better, highly motivated people into the teaching profession. It's difficult as an educator when you see bright students. You don't want to, I hate to say it, you don't want to recommend that they go into the education as a profession. You want them to be doctors, or I teach law, so I want them to go to law school and become an attorney. You know, I am going to go back to something that was asked about the federal lands. I went on a tour and we drove up a road, and on one side of the road, I have 30 seconds, one side of the road, they were allowed to go in and thin the trees. On the other side of the road, they weren't. Forest fire came through, guess which side burned? There's no trees left on the side where they weren't allowed to thin the trees. That is there's a private industry that will do that. It doesn't have to come at state cost. They'll thin the trees, and they'll use it in a lumber mill.
Thank you.
And to generate electricity. Actually.
Mr. Scott Pryor, will you complete the Association of Arizona Food Banks questionnaire on hunger in our state?
Will I?
That was the question, yes.
Sure. I would be happy to. Boy, that was a tough question. I thought I was going to stumble on that one.
Okay. Mr. Farnsworth, if you do not believe in public schools, how would the working poor afford schooling? Do you feel a good education makes a successful community?
Absolutely. There's nothing more important than a good education for the young people. And we have public schools, and they need to be the best public schools in the world. They're not going away. I do believe that charter schools are very important because they provide competition to help inspire us to make our public schools better. Now, if I could have rewound and gone back a long time, I like the old one-room schoolhouse. You know, we're spending over $9,000 per student. If you multiply that by 25, let's say there's 25 kids in a class, that's $225,000 per class per year. That's a lot of money, and it takes a lot of inefficiency, that upside down funnel, to waste that much money. And that's why charter schools are making so much money, because they're treating it like a business and making money at it. We've got to be more efficient.
Thank you. Ms. Steiner, reports over the last couple of years have noted that Arizona has one of the worst shortages of doctors in the United States. How would you attempt to address this issue as an elected official?
I've long felt that we are not growing enough of our own doctors, and doctoral students, pre-med students, have had to even go out of the country to Granada and places of that nature, that type of school that is beyond our borders, so that they can come back and practice. I think that we need to support our universities and invest in medical schools here in the United States, and particularly in Arizona. I see that the University of Arizona is doing just that, with expanding their medical school into the Phoenix metropolitan area, and I support that and would continue to be favorable to any programs that would help them be able to expand that.
Thank you. Ms. Kara Pryor, what are your opinions toward organizations and state agencies whose mission is to bring businesses to Arizona through economic and tax incentives for purposes of economic development?
I don't know if I'm going to answer this exactly the way the person who put it together wants or is intending, but what I think is one of our biggest problems is, yes, we need businesses out here, but we need to quit. If we maybe stopped putting so much money in private prisons, in subsidies to corporations that already have all this money, when there's families that can't even put food on the table, there you go. There's some more of your money for education. I mean, it just seems like we want to have more businesses here, like I said, but they need to pay their fair share. Okay, they create jobs. Where's the jobs? Why is all these homeless people on the streets? I mean, there's so many things. So, like I said, that's kind of a it's kind of a complex question with a complex answer. So I hope I at least touched on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman, what are your thoughts on whether the government should invest more money on building or expanding the border fence with Mexico?
Are you talking state government or federal government? What was the question again?
What are your thoughts on whether the government should invest more in building or expanding the border fence with Mexico?
I don't know if it really is feasible to put an actual fence, but I do believe in that we can put a virtual fence with the technology that we have. To me, it's a matter of national security. And I think it's only a matter of time, actually, that we're going to have an incident unless we're able to secure our border.
Mr. Scott Pryor, in the event of a budget shortfall, what is your philosophy and approach?
A budget shortfall? So if we hit a budget shortfall, I think part of that has to do with bad planning. one of the things that I've noticed over the past 6 or so years since I've been, active in politics is that we've spent a lot of time looking at revenue, giving out tax breaks, realizing that the budget's not balanced, and then cutting education. I think better planning will prevent a budget shortfall. And in case of a budget shortfall, I think the first thing that we should cut is going to be tax breaks for corporations, because the corporations are profiting off the backs of people. So that's where the cuts need to come first, as opposed to education or safety net services or anything that actually benefits people in our state. So I would actually start there and then find out exactly what spending should be cut that is not necessary to the benefit and health of the citizens of this state.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth, what is your position toward the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, commonly referred to as Obamacare?
I'm 100% opposed to that. I believe, again, that's an example of socialism. And the problem with that is anytime you have a two-party payer, whether it's insurance companies or the government paying the bill, the price goes up. Everything increases in cost when the individual is not paying their own bill. If we as individuals had a pure market system in our medicine, then if the price went up too high, we would rebel and go find another solution. But because the government is paying for it, or even insurance companies, we're insulated from that, and so costs go up, 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 and we don't complain. I went and got a prescription for a skin ailment, and it was $900 for the cream. And I said, I'm not going to pay for that. And I discussed it with the doctor the next time I went in, and lo and behold, he gave me another brand, and it was $20,
Thank
and that
you.
I bought.
Now we're at the time for closing statements. And the first closing statement will be given by Ms. Steinert.
As a retired educator of 42 years, spending the last 20 years with Central Arizona Community College in their Student Services Department, and serving on a variety of boards and committees over the years, I believe that I understand, as I have studied the issues that are important to the citizens of Legislative District 16. For far too long, we've been living in a state of one-party rule. I would be a strong voice in the legislature to work towards common sense solutions to address the serious issues facing Arizona. We deserve good government. We deserve strong schools, good jobs, and fair taxes. And as well, I think that I will be a good legislator because I am a clean elections candidate and will not be influenced by special interest groups that are pulling the strings from the shadows. In November, the voters will have an opportunity to select a voice for change.
Thank you.
And I respectfully ask for your vote.
Ms. Kara Pryor.
Well, we need to put our hearts into the political process. I mean, all the stuff that we're supposed to be doing to help the people, it's not helping the people. Or it's not helping all of them, it's only helping a certain portion of people. And I have an issue with that. I have an issue with special interests and everything else just basically sucking our political system dry and getting all those crooked politicians, as Senator Farnsworth so eloquently referred to them earlier. I'm going to stand up for Arizonans that don't feel like they have a voice or are tired because they feel like equality is just, it's not part of the status quo. Basic human rights. Everybody just needs to be deserves fair treatment regardless of sexual orientation, gender, regardless of anything. We're people at the end of the day. It's time we get treated like them.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
I believe that I have the experience and the perspective that comes from someone who has served at the local government level for a period of years. I've also taught in the public district school system for a number of years. I bring a unique perspective to the legislature. I've been there for 4 years. I believe that I've been an effective legislator. I have an open door policy if people want to talk to me. I would like to mention just some of the organizations that have endorsed me. I've been endorsed by the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Arizona State Troopers Association, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, the Arizona Rock Products Association, the Arizona Technology Council, Arizona Right to Life, Arizona Association of Realtors, Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, Greater Phoenix Leadership, the Professional Firefighters Association of Arizona, the Mesa Chamber of Commerce, Stand for Children. I might also mention that I'm one of the few Republicans that got the
Thank you.
Arizona Education Association
you.
endorsement.
Mr. Scott Pryor.
I think at the end of the day, I think what's most important is having a voice for everybody at the Capitol. And that's one of the things that I've always tried to instill upon people, that it doesn't matter to me what a person's political beliefs are, and it doesn't matter to me what their religious beliefs are or their sexual orientation. I don't care. My job, if elected, is to go down there and represent every single person in this room and every single person in this district. And that has not been done in a very long time. The only way to make things better for everybody is to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. And that's my goal if I'm elected at to go to the Capitol. Not to mention, it'd be cool to have his office. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're all people. And I think we all strive for the same things: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's what we all deserve, regardless of where we're from, what our financial background is, what our financial status is, what our education status is, any of that. And that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farnsworth.
The preamble to the Constitution says, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." The proper role of government is to protect the liberty of the people. There are certain things that are proper role of government, but we have gone far afield. Our founders found that perfect balance between anarchy and tyranny. The proper amount of government. We have way too much government. And socialism, although it sounds good and it feels good because we want to take care of other people, we want to take care of the poor, we want to make sure everyone has a good education, but we cannot afford full-blown socialism. There's just not enough money in the world.
Thank you. To our candidates, we thank you so much for participating in our forum. And to our audience members, thank you all for coming and taking the time to inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to visit www.azcleanelections.gov, where you can find information on the upcoming elections, download the Clean Elections app, and learn about the candidates running for office. A link to the video of this debate, as well as other Clean Elections debates, will be posted on that site within 72 hours of a scheduled debate. Please fill out the evaluation form you were given as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the commission and will help improve future debates. Thank you all for coming tonight, and feel free, please, to stay and speak directly to the candidates.